90s, but they said there's about to be a whole nother bull market that's going to supersede what we saw in the 1990s. Now, what is a bull market or a bull run? Bullish means that the markets are increasing, the economies are increasing, that there's increase on the horizon. And what they're saying is we don't see an end to this increase. So what happens is sometimes people end up having an end to increase because they go so far and then they hit a wall. Right? And so this is why it's important to stay around people with creative minds, fresh minds that are that think about the masses and think about how they can impact the masses of people. See, if you grew up with a mom and pop mindset, sometimes that mom and pop, hey, Robin and Rosalind, Tiffany, Miss Hood, what's up? So sometimes that mom and pop mindset can stop you from going on to the next level. Now, this is what I want you to know. We are now in what we call a bullish market. If you are having trouble in your money in this market, it's probably because you have to make a shift. Right? You have to make a shift. Now, the reality is even if, Michelle, you are in the middle of, what's up, Sharon? Even if you are in the middle of, trying to put something together and it's not necessarily working, this is why you have to stay around people that are smarter than you and that have brilliant minds. Because when you start thinking about business, when you start thinking about your life, again, if you have shortage in your life right now, it just means that you simply need to shift. You need to change positions. You need to take what you already have, no matter what it is, and add to it. Okay? Because right now we're in a bullish market. That means that the economies are flourishing. Now, here's the thing about it. A person with a brilliant mindset, even in the middle of a desert, they can have a flow. Even in the middle of a desert, they can have a flow. But the thing is, if you don't have a flow right now, in this particular season, in this year, in this economy, I don't want you to feel bad. I just want you to shift. I just want you to shift. In other words, it's time for you, just like this article said, to come into an extraordinary stretch of innovation. Now, it goes on to talk about, stocks, some of the things about, the people that have their stock in Apple, of course, are very happy right now, right, Andre? But this is the other part that I wanted to read to you. Okay, it says Apple's $1 trillion valuation is a great reminder to investors that companies with innovative ideas, where is my highlighter? With innovative ideas combined with world-class products and service can create value for investors over time. They can create value. So Apple was great. They didn't just have a product because sometimes what happens is we get caught up in our past success. Like, your past success is amazing. Like, give it up for your past success. That's great. Hey, Andrea. What's up, James? What's up, Carol? Your past success is great, but it's not just about your past success. It's about how many innovative ideas. And this is what they were talking about. This is a great reminder for investors. This is a great reminder for entrepreneurs. This is a great reminder. What are you going to do that's going to put that extra spin that makes your business, that makes your product, that makes your service irresistible? Hey, Chantel, what's up, sister? Hey, Phyllis. So again, I'm going to read that again. Apple's $1 trillion valuation is a great reminder to investors that companies with innovative ideas combined with world-class products and service can create value for investors over time. Now, the other thing that I want to skip down here and say, it says that the success of one stock, even one as influential as Apple, does not mean potential risk facing the broader stock market, such as worries over the economic fallout from tariffs or economic impact of higher interest rates will disappear. It says, however, Apple's financial feat doesn't feel like a signal that the market has reached its peak, given the strength of the U.S. economy. So even though Apple has hit $1 trillion. Remember, I read to you in the very beginning, it talked about they saw a bull run that would far surpass any bull run that's ever happened in history. Guys, this is huge. Why is this huge? This is huge because, again, if you are having problems in your money flow, it may be because you are trying to work a product that is antiquated, or maybe the product is good, but it hasn't been paired with enough innovation, right? So you could take any product. It could be hair, it could be water, it could be this vase, it could be my green powder drink. But then it's like, okay, how can I add on innovation to that to make people care about something that's not necessarily new, but we just put a new spin on it? And again, I love this article with Apple because I've done some research study on Hewlett Packard and Dell. And so why don't you hear about those computer companies as much? Because they all offer computers. They all offer tablets, right? But one of the things that Apple did is they got a bunch of fresh minds together, young minds, fresh minds, and said, how can we continue to innovate this product? And that's exactly what they did. They weren't afraid to making mistakes. Sharon, I would love to have you come to the millionairesgetaway.com. Can somebody put that in the chat for me? We're going out to the Merv Griffith Estate. Ooh, that thing is fabulous. Palm Springs, California. It's $1,000. And let me tell you something. It's going to be a game changer. 2 days of financial mapping and blueprinting and learning how to read and understanding what that means for you. And so anyway, it goes on to talk about Apple's accomplishment as a first for a U.S. company. Now, that's another thing that's huge. So what does that tell you? That people that got in on Apple, people that got in, as a matter of fact, I was talking to a young woman, and I won't mention her name. She's so sweet. I want to give her permission before I do this. She started trading foreign currency with me 2 years ago, and she called me yesterday morning, and she said, Jewel, tell me the truth. Do I need to be in this space? And I said, baby, absolutely. And I started spitting those numbers out to her. I started telling her the mistakes that I made. I started telling her that I was fumbling around. I was in the dark. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew what I was doing because I was going after my financial instinct, but my head hadn't wrapped around what I was getting in my instinct, but I kept going and kept going and kept going. And so now I'm having very, very successful trading days, but I had to stay in this space. I had to stay around innovators that understood the global economy. I had to stay around people that understood cryptocurrency, which also leads me now to this cover of Forbes magazine. Kylie Jenner right here, America's women millionaires, and it basically talks about how she's worth $900 million and on her way to being worth $1 billion. I don't understand why people would hate that. I think that's really, really crazy. Like, why wouldn't you be proud of her? Obviously, she's worked really hard. But this is what I wanted to read to you because this was another article within this, and it talks about the tricks of a crypto trader. Tricks of a crypto trader. This is really, really, really important that you see this. Now, I'm going to read this to you. This is basically talking about a crypto asset management firm, okay, out of Asia. And these kids were like, hey, Cynthia, what's up, babe? Hey, Teresa, Sharon. And they were talking about how these 20 and 30-year-olds, like Asians, how they got together, okay? So I'll just read this quick little excerpt, a couple things from it, and then we'll kind of tie it in to Apple being the first United States company to hit $1 trillion. The other thing that also means is that now I think it is mandatory for the church to move into the billion flow. Mandatory, because really the church is supposed to be leading the wealth transfer, not the world. The church is supposed to be leading the wealth transfer. But we have to start having these kinds of conversations as believers so that we are not just developing spiritually, but we're developing intellectually, right? That we're developing in how we think. We're developing in our conversation. We're developing, how we move, and that we start start thinking more on a global level than just on a church level, because it's not really about church. It's about really kingdom and advancing the kingdom. That means having influence in every sphere, every mountain, politics, social, which is, I don't understand why people were mad at John Gray for going to the White House, because you really don't know what he said to President Trump, because everything was not taped, obviously. So what we have to do is we have to start hating on people that are in positions of authority that we don't understand, and make sure that we put ourselves in position to be called upon, whether it's at the White House, or whether it's at the Supreme Court, or whether it's at Wall Street, or, the United Nations, that we put ourselves in that kind of position. So anyway, it talks about the tricks of a crypto trader, and it says, how did an IT salesman, now, by the way, and his buddy turn a Bitcoin trading sideline into the hottest crypto asset management firm in Asia? Okay, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but certainly there are some things that I want to pull out on here. First of all, I want you to know that they're Asian men in their 20s and 30s. Okay, and it basically talks about how these guys, they got together. They actually started with, it says, after college, Zhao worked in Beijing as an IT consultant for IBM and then Oracle. And in 2014, he committed $10,000 of his savings to trade Bitcoin. The next year, he left Oracle to trade crypto full time and increased his stash to nearly $100,000 during a period when digital coin went from $270 to $430, right? So he started with $10,000. A year later, he builds it up to $100,000. He leaves IBM, leaves Oracle. He says, let me do this full time. And it says one of Zhao's tricks was to capitalize on the inherent efficiency of the nascent market. He could often buy Bitcoin on one exchange at $300 and then sell it on another exchange for $301.50, pocketing a riskless $1.50 per coin. Okay, so you might say, oh, wow, he was only making $1.50 per coin. But imagine if he was trading 1,000 coins, right? Or 5,000 coins. And then he soon joined a group of like-minded Chinese traders who pulled their money. And by nearly 2017, they had amassed over $20 million. That year, as the ICO frenzy began bubbling over, Zhao and his trading buddies were eager buyers, sometimes investing on little more than a research paper and lofty promises. So it's not like they were super smart. They did spend a whole lot of time investing or studying out the coins. Like sometimes what happens is when you go from a lower class mindset to a middle class mindset, when you start hanging around people with an uber wealthy mindset, their ability to make decisions, it baffles the average person. And so one of the things that you have to do, and this is why it's so important to stay around young innovators, young creators, because what happens is, scientifically, as you get older, if you don't keep working your brain and sharpening it and cutting your teeth on new things and diving into deep areas, what happens is the brain automatically starts moving slower and slower and slower and slower and slower and slower, because it's just like a muscle. If you don't keep exercising it, then eventually it'll get to the point where it's not functioning at 100% capacity, and it makes it very hard to, and if you find it very difficult to move out, or you feel uncomfortable. See, what happens is you have to almost fall in love with being uncomfortable, right? Because Apple, that team, they had to get to the point where they're uncomfortable, because you and I both know if you have the Apple 10, it has its bugs. It's slow, like with sometimes sending a text message, or if I'm sending a group message, it's slow, or it'll just wipe out all my text messages like this morning. It does it every couple days. It just wipes it all out. But even with its inefficiencies, even with its issues and its flaws, I still love iPhone because of the culture of innovation that they have created. And I love going to the Apple store, and we've kind of done a little partnership with, I shouldn't say a little partnership, but we have a partnership with Apple, and it's growing. And I love sitting there, and I love talking to those guys and talking about what's getting ready to happen, like the 11 is getting ready to be released. And so what am I saying is that all this innovation. And I want to encourage you to get this article, get this magazine, get Forbes magazine. You need to start reading Forbes on a regular basis anyway, so that you can begin to learn the language, because wealth has a language. And the only way that you are going to master something and not have something master you is to understand it, right? You need to make money your friend and not your enemy. And so what happens sometimes as people in the church and sometimes our community, I love everybody, it's good, but you have to be careful about saying things like, oh, it doesn't take all that, or, oh, why are you talking about money? Because money is still dominating you. Every time you have to make an arrangement to pay a bill, or every time there is a need that you cannot write the check for immediately, or Cash App for, come on somebody, or PayPal for immediately, or go in your wallet and pull the money out, that means there's a cash flow